welcome back.
Episode 2.
Episode 2!
Wow. We didn't think we did it. Why?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, true. Not to doubt ourselves, just
No,
to
no,
say that, yeah.
we put things off a lot.
There
of the time.
definitely was some technical issues in the last episode, so we apologize for that. We are working on it. It will get better with time. We're figuring things out. But welcome back to the studio.
Welcome back. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah,
Today's
I'm
gonna
really
be so
excited.
interesting. Oh my gosh. My pen.
Oh no. Clear.
Clear.
Yeah, so today we just want to talk more in the way that we would normally speak to each other
Yeah.
about stuff.
Get more comfortable. And I think this is a topic that we have discussed so much over the years. And
Yeah.
it comes in like everywhere. So we're more comfortable with it and we can just flow. Okay. So obviously the topic is feminism.
Oh, the topic is feminism. Okay, this is what happened. I recently, by recently I mean yesterday, watched a girl. What would I call it?
She performed a play.
Yes, she performed a poem. Yeah.
She performed a poem.
It was beautiful, and it just ignited the raging feminist in me again.
Nice.
And I absolutely agree with
Her and her views. But then on that topic, I have always kind of just viewed myself as a feminist since learning about it and gone with it, I guess. But then I also realized that that's not everybody's point of view. And so yesterday I also watched a very interesting, I think it was a TED Talk with a lady that said she's not a feminist, which first of all shook me.
It's shocking to hear.
Yeah, shook me to my core.
Yeah.
And she's I believe she's a gender studies professor at some university, which is even more shocking to hear. How can you teach gender and human sexuality
Yeah.
without being a feminist? But her argument was kind of interesting. She argues that language is powerful, obviously, and that English, most languages are binary.
Yeah.
And so we exist in the binary because of the language that we use. And so her argument is if we change the language, we change movements. And so she refuses to say she's a feminist, although she believes in equality, because she believes that that's inherently a gendering word and that it genders the movement. And she doesn't agree with that. So she doesn't believe in feminism, but she believes in equality. So she's an equalist.
Amazing. I really do think that's where the movement is going, actually. Like, now that I think about it and the
Yeah.
way you worded it now, because, like, I mean, even when we were studying and, like, discussing feminism and all of that, and, like, remember we were actually, like, going through studying feminism and all of that when the Men Are Trash movement happened.
Yes.
And then that was a big topic because, yeah.
I don't have to be liberated in the same ways that you are because I don't feel oppressed in the same ways that you do.
Yeah.
And so that to me is where it really clicked. I was like,
Wow, that's such a beautiful sentence.
ah,
Jeez. Say it again.
what did I say?
I don't have to feel liberated in the same ways that you are because I don't feel oppressed in the same ways that you are. Whoa.
But it's the truth
It's
because
the truth, yeah.
in Spanish culture, the way that women feel oppressed is very different from the way that I feel oppressed in Afrikaans culture or in
Right.
English culture or
Although there are
similarities.
there's always going to be differences.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean. Also, I can view something like this is also something very controversial, but a lot of the time, feminists who aren't intersectional, who are very two-dimensional feminists, will say stuff like,
Very first wave.
yeah, will say stuff like Muslim women are oppressed because they have to wear hijab.
Yeah.
You see, that's what I mean. That intersectionality to me means that if you want to wear a hijab and you're comfortable in that, you absolutely should. And if I feel that it's oppression, I shouldn't.
Yeah. Dude, that's exactly what it boils down to for me, is just let women do what they want to do.
Let everyone do what they want to do.
Let
Let's just be
everyone
equal.
do what they want to
Let's just
do.
have the same rights in doing those things.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big argument. I debated with a girl one time. And her debate was the free the nipple movement is silly because as a girl, she doesn't feel that that's important. And she feels that there are more important issues in the world to argue for.
Right.
And well, obviously that's a very flat argument because yes, there are other important issues in the world to argue for, and people are fighting for those things, that doesn't mean we can't fight for other things.
Yeah.
But also just because, like, once again, just because you don't feel oppressed in that way doesn't mean other people don't feel oppressed in that way.
And the thing is with things like Free the Nipple is, it seems, okay, this is my problem with a lot of like feminist movements and stuff. On the surface level, it seems like very arbitrary. But once you start actually getting deeper into it, then you understand like the severity of the whole movement.
Once you confront the ideology of it, why is it that a woman cannot show her nipple but a man can? Because there's nothing different between the nipple. It's the breast. Yes, we can show the breast tissue. That's not controversial.
Yeah, it's the whole, it comes down to just objectifying women and...
But also the equality of it. Like, if we want equal rights, equal social standing for everybody, then those are little things that have to change that can seem arbitrary, but they're not equal.
Yeah, but that's the thing also, a lot of people like just see it as arbitrary and then they like write it off as a dumb movement and then that's that.
Yeah, nobody goes deeper.
So yeah, that needs to change somehow.
Yeah, I think it's important. And discussions like this is how it happens. Discussions to say,
Definitely,
this is such a little thing to you and it's not important to you, but it's important to me because of this, and to listen to other people. Because I think, like, once again with the Muslim thing, a lot of feminists simply go with what they feel. So like, if I'm just a white girl living in my world and I'm a Christian, whatever, and I'm like, covering my body in specific ways is very oppressive, and someone telling me that, and I assume the same for you without ever having a conversation with you about it, that's going to lead to some issues.
Right.
And I mean, just thinking about it from like you said, different points of view, like we grew up in different families, completely different cultures, all of that. And even within the same culture, like different families are going to have different dynamics.
Absolutely.
So yeah, you can't assume other people's oppressions.
Even just with like me and you, there's so much like...
There's a lot of similarities. We're the same in a lot of ways. We think the same in a lot of ways. But like we said, we're very different people in terms of like how we actually exist in the world and how we present ourselves. Like, I am from South Africa. I am white. I was raised in a Christian household. All the stuff, I'm whatever. I'm not married, whatever. You're married. You're Muslim. You're
grew up Catholic.
You're an immigrant. So
Latina.
those
all
things,
of these things.
So those things inherently are going to create differences in us.
Yeah.
And so if I think marriage is oppressive, and you're like,
but I like being married.
Yeah, I'm liberated.
That doesn't
being
mean
married.
you're not a feminist.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why intersectionality is so important.
yeah. And so I think the new equalist movement, if it's going to be called that, is just intersectional feminism, but in a new approach.
Just worded differently. To
But
make it more accessible, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's important. I don't disagree with her argument. In the beginning, I was kind of defensive. I was like, how dare you say that about feminism? And then I was like, actually, you're absolutely right. This is the truth. And if I'm a person who says, I hate the binary is dumb, I can't be like, no, but we should create more binary through language. Because if we're saying the binary is rooted in language, we should be open to changing our language to allow it to disappear.
Yeah.
So I was part of someone's doctorate study, which is so fun. He was doing his, I don't know if I'm allowed to share everything, so I'll just give a general. He's doing his doctorate on, his honors and masters was on this, so he's just elaborating further on it. Beyonce and her like visual album Lemonade, and just like feminism in that, and intersectionality in that, and all of that. So we had really interesting discussions. And he asked me some questions that I was like, whoa, I don't know. So I want to bring it up and see what you think.
Okay.
So he asked me, this is obviously thinking of Lemonade and Beyonce, popular culture, all of that. He was like, what do you think is intersectionality's role in pop culture?
I think the role is to show the different points of view, to show that what oppresses me doesn't oppress you, and to show you being liberated in those choices that you make that I view or could view as oppression. And I think intersectionality's point is just to highlight the differences between us without separating us. I think this is the one thing I didn't agree with this lady who had the TED Talk about equality.
Yeah.
The binary I agree with, but she also said that She doesn't like the fact that it genders people, because then what it does is it only highlights the differences between genders instead of showing the similarities. I think, yes, similarities are important, but I think it's so important that we know the differences.
Right.
And it's so important that we view them and that we see them as important without seeing them as an opposing
Like
threatening
weaknesses and stuff.
or a threat,
Or threats.
or like something that's violent or whatever. It's so easy for us to view other people and not understand their views and their way of life, and therefore to see them as a threat or to see their way of life as violent. I think we spoke about this in third year as well, where I think it was that said, to some people words are violence, or words can be violent,
Yeah.
because if you oppose something, that is violent in the nature of it.
Yeah,
So
because violence is a disruption.
Yeah.
So if you disrupt someone's normal way of life, that's violence, right?
Exactly. So
Okay.
it doesn't necessarily have to be physical. But this is the only example I use because it's the easiest and most accessible to me. If I'm a Christian woman who's only been Christian ever, and now a Muslim lady is there, and she's not explaining anything, and she doesn't have to. It can very easily feel threatening. Look at this person living their life so differently. It's a threat to my way of life, whatever. And I think it's so important to change that ideology and to go, you are so different. What is different about you? What makes you this person?
Dude, that's so deep. You know, this really just triggered me now. I have a memory of, I don't even know where we were. My mom and I were like at some family friend gathering, whatever. And some random lady that I've never met was there, and we were all just talking, whatever, you know, cute. And she's asking me about myself, whatever. I'm like, yeah, I'm engaged, cool. And then she was like, oh, because everyone is drinking. And she's like, you don't drink? I'm like, no, I'm Muslim. And she goes, you're Muslim? And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, you're going to kill your mom. And I was like, what?
What do you mean you're going to kill your mom?
She was like, how can you do that? And I was like, I'm just happy, you know, living my life.
But what did she mean by that? Did she mean that you being Muslim is a shock to your mom? Or
I don't know, but like that's the thing. Because then after that, I just changed the subject and then I walked away. But then I was reflecting on it and I'm like, what did she mean? Did she mean like I'm gonna, like what you said, shock my mom?
Emotionally kill her?
Or does she now see me as a terrorist? Like what's going on in this lady's mind? And that really was, I forgot that even happened. But like you see...
But that's triggering. That's absolutely triggering. How can you do that?
But that's exactly what you're saying. Like, I'm existing, and that was violence towards her.
Yeah, because it was interrupting her way of life and her thought pattern. Because also, if her hegemonic ideology in her brain is that Muslims are terrorists, and now you're sitting in front of her and you're this girl and you're just living your life and you're not a threat to anybody, you're just living. That is violent towards her ideology.
Yeah. So deep.
It's important that we change our mindsets around other people and the differences between us. Something that I think is very interesting on this topic is Midsommar.
Our favorite movie.
If you've not watched Midsommar, I highly recommend that you watch it. And I don't know if this will contain spoilers, maybe. So if you haven't watched it,
go watch it and then
come
report back.
But I think it's important that we also look at that, right? Because there is a point where, for me, the thing I took away from Midsommar was how far can we defend actions through culture? So at what point do we say, okay, this is actually just wrong?
Yeah.
Or we stick to, this is culture.
Right.
That's hard, right? That's a difficult boundary to manage.
Yeah, that's also where intersectionality comes in. Like, I think you also have to differentiate. Well, I don't know. I'm sure this happens in other cultures, but like, for example, in a lot of Muslim communities, the culture and religion get like so intersected. I don't even know what word to use. Muddled. That you, at some point, and that happened to me, because I mean, I wasn't born Muslim. Like, I came into the religion, and obviously the way my husband's family and all of them do like Islam or whatever is different to others, but they also kind of muddle their culture, not as much as others, but they muddle culture and religion a lot, that sometimes I really had to just step back and be like, guys, but
Is this part of the religion or is this just a cultural practice?
yeah, I was like, what? This does not make sense. This is just a cultural thing. And then I would tell them that, and then now they're shook. They're like, what do you mean? 'Cause
Yeah.
they grew up with it being like that. So
It's true that culture
Yeah.
can become very muddled with religion. I think in all ways because it's so easy to
and with
Obviously-
anything else like political views
no,
or
yeah, of
whatever.
course. But
yeah.
I mean, religion specifically, religion is it kind of gives you a rule book on life. So it is going to muddle your perception, your actual experience of living life because you have to apply that to living your life.
Yeah.
So now sometimes things happen in your life and you're like, but this is part of the religion. No, it's not.
It's not. It's not. So, yeah, I think that also comes obviously in Midsommar. Like, is this your culture? Is this your religion? Like, is it
Yeah.
right? Is it wrong? What's going on?
Exactly. And so I think it's also like that also can become violent in some ways because to me, if violence in religion can often be very simple or in culture, whereas other people, so I would say, I would look at something, say for instance, slaughtering animals, right? To me, I'm like, that's a violent thing.
It's shocking. Yeah.
And so to me, it can easily be like this culture, not to me specifically, but I mean, people who have my kind of mindset, if they don't think and don't apply that logic, they can easily go, well, that's violent and that's wrong, and this group of people is absolutely wrong. Instead of going, okay, what are their views? Why do
Yeah.
they do this? What is
Dude, I've heard that so many times because it's a common practice in many cultures and religions even. Many. And I mean, dude, if
But
you
everyone
eat
has-
meat, like you have someone has slaughtered your meat. You know what I mean? So
But everyone has different like kind of reasonings for it. And I think
Yes.
that's also important because yes, many cultures do it, but just because you know why one culture does it doesn't mean you know why every culture
why
does
every
it.
culture? Yeah. But also, I've heard people that are not of those cultures say things like, "It's so primitive that people are slaughtering." Like, and I'm like, guys, but okay, to you,
But
what does
yeah.
that mean to you?
But in Western culture, we like things to be very clean.
Yeah.
And so it's easier for people to consume meat when someone else is doing it. They don't have to see it. They, don't have to think about it. They buy it in a perfectly neat package and it's done.
Yeah.
But when people actually have to participate, the lines can get crossed very easily.
Yes.
But I think that's what's important in Midsommar. Like they show it beautifully that by the people that sacrifice themselves, to them it's a beautiful practice.
It's just a part of life, a progression to them.
And if you watch it, I think it's easy to sympathize with that. I don't think it's hard to look at that and go, okay, I guess I can see why they did it. That doesn't mean you have to agree with it, but you can kind of see, you're like, okay,
That's what's so beautiful about that movie, I think, that it shows all this violence in a way that
it's beautiful.
it's beautiful and you can understand it and you can be like, wow, what a beautiful culture.
But you can also argue both sides. You can, I mean, I would not want to be present in that moment when that happens.
Absolutely not.
So you just as easily can sympathize and embody the Westerners that come into this culture and don't understand it. I think that's important in every culture, but I think it's important that we find some sort of balance. And once again, it's a boundary that is going to be difficult to establish because it's different for everyone.
Yeah.
What can't be justified through culture? I don't think murder can be just justified through culture. So even though I can understand Midsommar and go, yeah, it's beautiful, and that culture is beautiful, and I think the practices are rooted in something that is beautiful, I don't think it's right. I don't think you can kill people just because
you can't just bring people against their will and like
you can't kill people and say, oh, it's just my culture, it's just our religion, it's just what we believe.
yeah,
You know?
no, there's obviously certain boundaries.
And so there are other boundaries as well that I think that's what I'm saying. It can be a very muddy way to look at things, but like it can be hard to set a boundary because if you're a feminist and you're intersectional, yes, you have to take other people's cultures and religions and lived experience and race and ethnicity into account. But there are also practices that are oppressive that
we need to recognize.
And it's easy to say, I mean, if you've ever been in a state where you've been oppressed in any way and you were liberated out of that oppression, you can see how easy it becomes to be trapped in that and to defend it, to say, no, but it's just the way we do things or whatever. And then later you realize, yeah, well, maybe we shouldn't do things this way.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think it's just really reflecting on life and on like
yeah.
yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think it's my decision to make what's oppressive for you.
Yeah, no. That's
But I
the thing.
can ask you.
Mm.
I can have a conversation with you. And if I can engage with you on that level, even if in that moment you're defensive about it, it's not my job to push you any further. It's just my job to ask. And if that in turn triggers reflection within you to go, I don't know if this is liberating to me or it's just something I've always done because someone told me to do it. Great. And if it doesn't, okay, you are on your own journey. Trust your process.
Yeah. And remember also the first instinct to questioning your beliefs is always to be, what's the word?
Like,
To be angry about it.
to be angry, but also to be defensive.
Defensive, that's the word.
To be defensive.
To be defensive about it.
That was an incredible learning curve in our degree.
Sure.
They absolutely, our lecturers did a fantastic job of questioning everything that you do, everything that we did, and all our beliefs and all our ideologies, and bringing them to the forefront and saying, do you really believe this, or is this something society
Or
told
did
you?
you just grow up like that?
Is this something your mom told you?
Yeah.
Is this something your dad told you? And it's triggering in the beginning. It's very hard to...
You're like, how dare you?
Yeah, it's very hard to
I
think
love
about these
Jesus.
things. Yeah, it's, and also
And we had to question those things about ourselves.
there was a lot of racial discussion where they were kind of opposing groups. And the one thing I remember so clearly is there was a group of people who said, I don't see color.
Yes,
And that
this
was-
is a big thing.
And that was seen as like a beautiful thing. Everyone was like, you don't see color? Amazing. And our lecturers were like, maybe that's problematic.
They
Why
were
don't
like-
you see it?
Okay, but if you're not seeing the color, then you're not recognizing the
person.
difference and the person.
The lived experience because of that difference.
Yeah.
And people were very defensive in the beginning.
Yeah.
They were like, but not seeing culture is equal. And they're like, yeah, but not really.
No, not really, because that is kind of like, I don't even know what to call it, like a colonial mindset. Like just erasure
Yeah.
is equality. No, it's not, babe.
Yeah, it's not.
No, it's not.
It's not.
You have to like
You have to recognize the person, the lived experience, everything that went into that existence
Yeah.
to get to a point of equality.
Yeah.
And equality, once again, liberation for you is not liberation for me. So equality doesn't look the same for everybody.
Right.
We have to recognize that. Otherwise, we cannot move forward.
I love that. It doesn't look the same for everyone. I think that also comes into play. Why? What is that sentence? I keep wanting to say it comes into, and then I don't know how to finish.
Comes
it.
into play, yeah.
Comes into play.
Comes into play when?
I don't know what I'm saying. What did you say?
What did you say? This is another just thing that always happens in our discussions. We will be so deep into something and it would end so abruptly with, what happened?
The train of thought is going, and then there's just a tunnel
Gone.
of emptiness. Oh, I want to bring in Deleuze and Guattari, the folding of skin, and all of that, because I feel like, yes, we learned that during like feminism 101 kind of vibe, but it links to
All of this.
equality, what that lady said,
Well,
because it's taking away the binary. But then again, whenever I think of that term of like taking away the binary, I just have flashbacks of Carla saying, but we live within the patriarchy, you can't erase it. So
Well, we
how
want
do
to-
we redefine it?
yeah, we want to redefine it, and dismantling the patriarchy means changing the language.
Yeah.
But, this is what I wanted to say. In that differences, right? In those differences we see between people, like that lady did to you, that is othering.
Yeah.
Because she goes, in that moment, she othered you because you said, I'm Muslim, and she immediately said, this girl is something different from the rest of us. We are something and she is not. We are this and she is other than this. And through othering you in that experience, othering is like, I don't want to say the root of all evil, but like it is.
But it is.
It's the starting point. If you see a difference between you and someone else as them being other, it's so easy to take that other and attach labels to it, like
Yeah.
weak, inferior, primitive.
Yeah. That's when you have to catch yourself, because yes, we say recognize the differences between you and others, but not in a way that is
Recognizing the difference doesn't mean
demeaning for them.
yeah, but recognizing the difference doesn't mean I can't see the similarities.
Right.
Doesn't mean I cannot see you as a human being at the end of the day. I don't disagree with everything that you say. I don't have to believe everything you say. But I can still respect you as I respect myself and others.
Yeah, that's the point. It's you don't have to agree with everyone, like you said.
No.
Mm.
Recognizing the difference is not agreeing.
No.
It's
yeah.
understanding and moving on. You don't have to agree with the difference. Just because I understand why you're Muslim and I celebrate you in that does not mean I am going to change who I am for that. And I don't
Yeah.
have to. And you don't have
and
to.
I don't expect you to also.
Exactly. It's accommodating an existence with both of us and understanding how I can do things to make your life easier. Like, simply put, if I'm with your family, what is respectful in that moment?
Mm.
I'm not Muslim, but what is respectful if I go to your wedding? I'm not going to
Yeah.
wear a strap top
Yeah,
because
exactly.
that's not respectful to you.
And that's not changing who you are
No.
or your beliefs.
No,
just
it's
respect.
accommodating.
Yes.
It's not changing the course of my life. It's changing a moment to accommodate.
Mm.
Just as you can do the same thing for me. It's
Yeah.
not. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's easy to say, oh, other, whatever, because then you don't have to do the work.
Yeah.
If you other
That's the
someone,
easy way out.
if you other someone or something for some experience, it's so easy to go, oh, okay, well, they're just different, so I don't have to deal with it.
I don't have to think about it. I don't have to deal with it.
I don't have to understand you, get to know you, find a way that we can mutually exist and whatever. And that's not to say that sometimes there won't be moments of I don't understand your tension. I don't understand why you're doing this and I don't want to accommodate you in that.
Mm.
It's not always wrong to not accommodate someone, but there can be discussion from that to say, but why don't you want to accommodate me? And oftentimes, actually, it will highlight something in yourself that you didn't even realize was a problem in your ideology. So that's where I think Deleuze and Guattari comes in. Because if I can recognize it's easy to other people and I can recognize a binary that is othering, because if I say I'm a woman and you're a man, that's othering, or you're a man and I'm a woman,
Yeah.
othering. And so if we take Deleuze and Guattari said that we shouldn't look at men and women as two.
They said as because of is it Freud? That
Yeah.
said like women are lacking
Yes.
because of the, phallus. Then Deleuze and Guattari said we shouldn't see women as lacking and men as having, but rather our skin is just folded differently.
So yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
So Freud's argument was that men have something that inherently women don't have. And in fact, they have the opposite of it. Men have a phallus, women have a hole. That is lacking. That is the opposite of you have less than. So you are less than us. We have more than you. You are inherently inferior. All the stuff that goes along with that. Deleuze and Guattari said, but even if that is true, not all women look the same and not all men look the same.
Right.
So if we want to look at the differences, look at the differences between you also.
And also there's people that exist within that spectrum that might not be men. It's not a binary also,
Exactly.
like being male or female.
Exactly.
So,
And so in that, stop looking at the physical difference and saying, oh, I have a muscle, I have a phallus, I have my feet are 3 times bigger than yours. You're
size 13 Nikes.
Woo! Girl!
Yeah.
But your skin is just folded
Well, just folded
differently than mine.
Looking at it like that is very like equalist.
Very
Are we gonna
equalist.
adopt that term now?
Equalist. I'm an equalist.
Because it's already not defining something within the binary.
Yeah. And it's also changing language, right? Which is exactly what what this lady's trying to achieve. Actually, I should look for her name so that we can mention her. But
Insert it.
hi guys, Future Me here. It's a TED Talk by Professor Betsy Cairo, and it's called Why I'm Not a Feminist.
Changing the language, not changing language itself, because language itself is always going to be
It's going to be
binary.
safe, but the language that we use, if we change the language that we use, we change everything.
Right.
We change ideology. We change the way that we approach things and see the world and approach others. If you're not a man and I'm not a woman, just because of how we look, but we're just folding of our skin,
Yeah.
and you get to identify with who you are, that immediately erases the issue of
Biological determinism.
which obviously is problematic in itself. We know that if you care about biology at all, you absolutely need to recognize the fact that XY chromosomes differ inherently. So you can't say, well, your chromosomes are XY, because some people's chromosomes are XXY. Girly. That's not a way to determine things.
Girly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. And also just like you were saying, yes, I have more muscle than this person or whatever. That doesn't mean
Yeah.
I'm more manly than them or whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's the binary, dude. We need to stop talking in the binary. It's so freaking annoying.
I mean, it's not easy to do that because it's the binary is all we existed in. It's all we've ever existed in. That's why small changes. That's why I can agree with this lady and say small changes to the language that we use every day is the way. It's the only way I can see us breaking free of the binary, the patriarchy, the oppression that is inherently in using gendered language. And yes, you can say men can be feminists. Absolutely. Men can be feminists and feminism can work for men.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But if we use the term equalist, that takes gender out of the equation, which I think is the way forward. It's the way to go.
It is definitely because, like we said, a lot of people run away from feminism because they think it's only for women or
Because
whatever
it's
the
also
case.
othering.
Because it is othering. Yeah,
To say-
the term itself.
I'm a feminist, I am feminine. You are not that.
Yeah.
That's othering.
Yeah.
So if you don't want that to happen, how do you change that? You change the language around it.
Yeah.
It won't be an easy thing ever to understand, adopt, use.
Use in practice.
Yeah, but it's the same thing as getting used to someone saying, hi, I would no longer like to identify as she, I'm not they. It's not easy for the first, 10 times you see them,
Yeah.
you focus at it, it's gone, it's easy, you know it now.
Yeah.
It's working.
It's working. Wow.
Wow, I love when we have informative discussions.
Yeah, I love it. And I love the fact that that you saw that video of that lady because now we're taking the conversation forward. We're not just talking about everything we already know.
Yeah.
Feminism and whatever. And
It's easy to talk about
toxic
feminism, yeah.
masculinity and all of that. I was going to say bullshit, but it's not bullshit.
It's not bullshit, but sometimes it can feel like it because it's hard.
Yeah, it's hard. And that's the thing also like with feminism. Like I'm also tired of having to always explain to people like you can identify as a feminist. Like don't be scared of it.
I think my thing is like, I kind of have this go-to thing where if people are like, I'm not a feminist. I'm like, do you believe in equality? Do you believe everyone deserves equal rights?
Yeah.
Yes, you're a feminist. But now that's what I did yesterday when this lady had her discussion. She's like, I'm not a feminist. I believe in equality. I was like, you're a feminist.
Yeah.
And then she was like, but if we change the language, I was like, oh,
Mind
okay. Okay, girlie, I can see.
I see you.
I can see where we're going with
Yeah,
this.
That works.
And now, I mean, if someone says, I believe in equality, you're an equalist. That's very easy to understand.
yeah,
Very easy.
very easy.
That doesn't mean it's not going to take the same amount of effort to educate people on what that equality means.
Right. But I mean, we're going somewhere. And
I
that's
agree.
good. And that's not to say like feminism sucks, like it's stupid because no one understands it.
It's
Like,
just changing.
we needed the movements when they happened and like
If it
got us to where
wasn't,
we
yeah,
were,
if it
to where we
wasn't
are.
for, not to say that there weren't flaws in it inherently, but if it wasn't for first wave feminism and second wave, we wouldn't be here. But we are here. And what do we do with it going forward?
Yeah.
We can either have it be a movement that no longer fits the times, that is something that is that does that, that others people, that makes people feel uncomfortable, makes certain people feel, women, men, anyone on the gender spectrum, feel like they cannot be part of that movement because of the language. Or we can have it be inclusive, how we want things to be. That's the future that I want.
Yeah.
I want people to feel included.
Dude, it's like when we spoke about like universities and stuff and like the readings that we had to do in varsity that was so like, it was like this elite, like if you don't understand the language then you can't be educated.
Yeah.
And that's so fucked up because like
we did a I'll never forget this. We did a conference on decolonization.
Yes.
And I had to record a session. And I've never sat through something so tone deaf. This professor was giving a lecture on how elitist universities are through the language that they use. And she wrote a paper on it to explain her views, to say that we should decolonize the language we use in universities because inherently that is elitist and classist. And so if you come from specific backgrounds or certain other backgrounds, you don't have access to that, or it's harder for you to have access to that, which makes it an opportunity that isn't equal. So it has to be decolonized, which I agree with. But her paper was written in the most classist language I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
It's like she went to the dictionary and used the biggest word she could find and just put it in there. And I'm like,
You're like, but you're doing the same thing.
how can you say, we need to decolonize this and not use these massive words that is outdated, that no one uses anymore. It's kind of archaic. It sounds like you're speaking in Shakespearean tone.
Right.
But then that's what you're doing
You do the exact same thing.
Yeah, it was very tone deaf, but that is the truth. It's so important. I didn't realize until I listened to this lady's discussion that language, I did realize that language is important because the binary is focused on that, but I never actively thought about like how minuscule changes in language can affect movements. I was like, yes, we need to change our language in terms of referring to gender, in terms of referring to sexuality, but not to movements. If you change the language of a movement, you change the movement.
Yeah, definitely.
We need to make it something beautiful and accessible, and
I think it comes down to accessibility for me. I think that's the most important thing.
And that's, if we start to dismantle the language and how we speak about movements, we can dismantle the language to so many other things, like universities, where you can call it what you want. You can call it decolonization, you can call it dismantling, you can call it freedom of oppression, you can call it liberation, you can call it whatever you want. But at the end of the day, yes, you need to retain a certain amount of professionalism in universities and in those structures.
Right.
But that doesn't mean it has to be elitist, classist, excluding, othering. Because especially in our country, we live in a country where we need everybody to be educators for everyone else. And we need education to be absolutely accessible to everyone, because our society is already in a space where education is hard. It's almost unattainable for a large majority.
Yeah.
And so if me writing a paper and publishing it can be accessible to everybody in the country, they can take that paper and read it and understand it.
That's the thing.
That's making education accessible.
Like, why the fact that we literally had to go through the whole of first year just going through readings like line by line and breaking down how to understand this language, like that's not accessible. And normal everyday people, like, not that people, you know what I'm saying, like, now that we're out of university, rather, we're not going to sit and find these readings and like spend all that time on it again to try and understand what people are saying. Like, just write it in a way that I can understand it quickly, dude. Like, what?
Exactly.
We don't have time for this anymore.
Exactly.
Like,
And it's part of that thing, like, well, if you don't pay tuition, you don't deserve access to this knowledge.
oh,
If you don't have a degree, you don't deserve access. What kind of thinking is that?
what kind of dude?
And then the worst part, I think, about all of this is not just that the readings we found beforehand were difficult, hard to consume, hard to break down, but then that we were forced to write in the same tone.
Oh yeah.
Because if you write and it's too simple, it's too understandable,
casual.
it's too digestible, then it's not professional.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is the same concept as saying, you're a woman, but you can't be taken seriously in a professional industry without wearing clothes that a man would wear.
Oh my
You have to wear a
God.
suit.
Yeah.
You have to tie your hair back, wear minimal makeup, look like a man.
Mm.
Try to conform to this masculine world in order to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
If you walk into a, like the idea is that if you walk into an establishment that is professional and you wear a pink frilly dress, your hair is poofy and you wear pink makeup, that is not professional and you cannot be taken
It's not,
seriously.
and they won't take you seriously. That's the problem.
And that's the same problem with the language. If my language is too casual, then I can't be taken seriously.
Mm.
Suddenly my education is not as important as yours. Suddenly my education doesn't mean quite as much as yours does.
And what's the thinking behind that? It's again the elitism. Like,
It is.
oh no, this is too informal. Like, oh, it's not as important as something that feels
It's,
like I need to spend 3 hours on it to understand one page.
yeah, it's like, it's weak. It's
Yeah.
weaker. Your arguments are weaker because you don't use the language that I prefer. Excuse me?
Sorry, what? Yeah, no, that I don't believe in that at all. I really think that these kinds of topics should be written in a way that are more accessible. And I think that's why, like these video essays on YouTube have become such a big niche on the platform, because people just want information given to them, presented to them in a way
That's digestible.
that's digestible. Like, we're all busy. Our lives are going at 300 times speed. We don't have time to sit and try to digest 3 pages of just explain to me what you mean by I'm not a feminist, I'm an equalist. Like, give it to me quick, babe. You
There
know?
are articles that explain this is the crux. The message, the information in that article is feminism means wanting equal rights. That's the crux. But that thing is 12 pages, it's only elitist language, it takes you hours and hours to digest, and then you're like, you wanted to tell me one sentence?
And then people are like, why aren't people educated?
Why don't people take the time to educate themselves?
Because you don't make it accessible for me to educate myself.
Exactly. The
Love
general
that.
population, I think, maybe I have a misconstrued idea, but I don't think the general population goes onto Google Scholar and says, what is feminism? What is the patriarchy? And sits here and reads 12-page articles to understand one term.
I haven't been on Google Scholar
No.
since I graduated.
Yeah, I think most people go to YouTube or go to their friends for that information. If that information is accessible and easily digestible, then there's more conversations happening around that information. So if you're actually a scholar, you're actually someone who wants to be taken seriously, why would you not want conversations to happen about your work, about your ideas? Why would you then not use the language that is accessible to everyone?
It just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. It's classist. And it's othering
Yeah.
in the nature. Because you're other, because you're not smart enough to understand.
Nice.
Nice. Nice.
I just feel like we spoke about we rounded it off.
It's perfect. It's
Perfect.
beautiful.
Yeah.
This morning I saw a video of someone, and I can't remember, the caption was like, this man hasn't flirted with someone since 1830 or some shit, but he's like trying to flirt with the girl in the car, and he's like, that's literally, for everyone listening, he's literally just like, thumbs up. Like, nice.
Nice.
And that was literally the image I saw in my head when you went, nice.
Literally 3-hour discussion on feminism, all this shit. I'm like, nice.
Nice. Thanks so much. This
Finish.
check. Beautiful discussion on feminism completed. Nice.
Done. Yeah. I mean, what else is there to say?
Don't be classist.
Don't be an asshole. That's this week's homework, guys.
Let's fuck up the binary.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think when you think about the binary though, like everything you say becomes like, this is the binary.
No, my brain turns to mush when I think of the binary.
Like, what language fits into that?
Oh,
Everything, girly. Everything. If this is green, what is not green? Binary.
What was that line of something about defining yourself by what you're not? It goes back to the whole like phallus and women lacking all of that. Blah, blah, blah.
It was saying that, oh, this is what it. So she explained it very simply, because I was like, girl, what is this? And her simple explanation was that if something isn't love, then what is it? It's hate. So if you're not a man, what are you? And that's the same thing with queer theory. This is a different discussion, but I'm just going to mention it briefly. So if you're not a woman, but you're not a man, what are you? Then, so if you identify as, this is what we spoke about in that moment, so that's what I'm going to mention now. If you identify as a lesbian, you are not a woman in the mind of the patriarchy and the binary. You're also not a man, but you identify to them with masculine traits because you like women. Therefore, you're other, but you're also a threat.
Dude, like, people really need to stop thinking in the binary because you see how complicated it gets.
It gets very complicated very, very quickly.
And that's what causes violence.
Oh, I had a thought now. It's leaving me.
No, come back.
Charlie. Oh, I saw a TikTok and I thought this was so interesting, and it kind of ties back to what you were saying. Of the male gaze. And how, this girl was just saying, she was like, sorry, girlies, to break it to you. But because there's this whole trend on TikTok that it's like, I'm not dressing for the male gaze, I'm dressing for the female gaze. She was like, you not dressing for the male gaze is you... What did she say? She was like having a male voyeur within you because not dressing for the male gaze is still presenting yourself to the male gaze.
It's seeing yourself through the male gaze and then saying, okay, I'm just not going to do that.
Yeah, because you being opposed to something or being like not conscious of something is still the male gaze.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, it's
the
just
male
so
gaze
deep.
is also a different topic, but the male gaze is very interesting and hard to swallow.
Yeah, and it goes back to the binaries because now people are like, okay, no, the female gaze. But
you're still in the binary.
it's still in the binary.
How are you going to escape that?
And it's looking at it like, okay, if this is the male gaze, then the opposite of that must be the
female.
female gaze. And it's not like that.
But the male gaze is interesting because I think that's a very hard topic because it does inherently make you question yourself, all of us.
Yeah.
Because we adopt the male gaze ourselves.
Yeah.
And we look at ourselves and others through that same gaze, and we measure ourselves and other people with that same gaze.
And that's my thing also, like, in my opinion, the female gaze doesn't exist. It can't.
Girly! Oh my god, you're just gonna drop the bomb? I didn't know that.
53 minutes in.
I don't believe in the female gaze.
No. To me, it doesn't exist because of exactly what we just said. If something's a male gaze, the opposite of that would be the female gaze, in quotations. But that is still within the male gaze, so therefore it doesn't exist.
I don't agree with that. I don't disagree with what you just said. I just don't agree with that. I agree that there is a female gaze. I just don't think it's the opposite of the male gaze.
Okay, what do you think the female gaze is then?
I think the female gaze lies in all of us who identify as feminine. And you can also have feminine traits as a man or as a masculine person or as a person who doesn't identify as a woman. So don't confuse the two. But if you have feminine qualities or you're in a feminine state of being, there are things that are absolutely part of the female gaze to me. So I think things like muscles and all this stuff, that's the male gaze. That's literally how men look at themselves and think they're superior. But I think the female gaze is not looking at things as inferior or superior, just looking at them as existing. So if I...
Okay.
For instance, female gaze to me is, I look at a man that is not generally considered as handsome or the idea of handsome. I don't look at that man and go, he's not handsome because whatever. I look at him as the person and see, that vein on his arm is so beautiful. The way he holds his head is beautiful. The way she crosses her legs, that's beautiful. Not because they're legs. Not because there's
A sexual intent behind it.
But just because of its essence.
That to me is the female gaze.
Wow, that's beautiful. Well, okay. I'll have to think about it. The thing is,
I'm not saying that you're wrong for not believing it.
No. I know. I'm just saying, like, I guess also the way that I've always thought about the male and female gaze is through, obviously, TV and
And through
stuff.
that binary.
So through that, I'm like, the female gaze doesn't exist.
Yeah, because, like, not to say this is what's happening, but I think a lot of people don't identify with the female gaze that is shown in popular culture. First of all, because it is that the opposite of the male gaze, but also because the female gaze is going to differ for everybody. Just because that's the female gaze to me, now I'm showing you what my female gaze is, and you're looking at it and you're like, but I don't identify with that.
Yeah. But that's the thing, that's the problem, I think, because the female gaze that I've been seeing, like on TikTok, Instagram, whatever, is still the male gaze. Like, people don't get it.
Yeah.
So that's what I don't agree with, I think.
Yeah, but you can decolonize that for yourself by saying, okay, if it's not that to me, what is it?
Yeah. You look at it in a very, like, yin and yang kind of, not yin and yang, like, divine feminine kind of way.
I think so.
I think the way that you just phrased, like, your idea of the female gaze, that's what I would define as, like, feminine, divine feminine. Feminine, I was going to say feminine divinity.
Divinity.
Okay.
Okay, guys.
I think I'm finished. I'm
Yeah.
all feminist out. Feminists and out.
The feminine in me is now about to take a nap.
I didn't even mention what I wrote in my bookie.
We're
But
gonna
it-
have many more episodes.
It has no point to be in this video, so.
Okay. Will you mention it another time?
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Thank you so
If
much
you
for
made it this far.
watching. If you made it this far through this treacherous road.
We went through the trenches today.
Obviously communicate with us and tell us what your thoughts and views are on this and what you think, and if you disagree with things that we said or agree with things that we said. Okay. Have a lovely day.
Have a lovely
You've
day.
already checked out.
Yeah, I've checked out now.
Okay, namaste.
Bye.
Bye.